welcome back to the podcast for the 24-25 National League season, and we are previewing game week 1 in the National League this season. It's that time of the year again, Paul, where we're starting to do our preview weekly episodes, and of course it's on a Friday night. For those who are listening, it's usually on a Thursday. We've had to reschedule because we recorded our predictions yesterday that are out now for you guys to watch. I'm guessing that most people probably have watched them, so please give us your opinions on them in the comments. But no, before we get into the predictions and before we look at the live chat, Paul, firstly, how are you doing tonight?
Yeah, good, mate. Looking forward to the eve of a new season. It's like Christmas Eve for us football fans. It's brilliant, isn't it? You know, so another 10 months of joy and stress and frustration and miles, and we love it, don't we? So I'm really looking forward to it, Luke.
Yeah, I think for myself last season, I think I did, was it 12, 13 away games last season? So hoping to break that record once again. And what I like about the National League is how you go all to these different grounds down south that aren't particularly, huge grounds, but they're all different and have all got their own character in a certain way. You know, you go to the likes of Aldershot, Eastleigh last season down south, even likes of Dagenham. I find it proper interesting going to these sort of grounds and to follow your club up and down the country at this level. I think for everyone who's watching this can probably agree, it does mean something. You know, you've got that passion when you're following your team up and down the country, and that's something that I'm very, very I'm looking forward to doing this season. I'm very excited to be doing that with my team, Halifax. For those who don't know, Paul, of course, yourself, a Wealdstone fan, looking to do some away days this season.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I've got three children who play football Saturday mornings. So some of the longer away trips are slightly more difficult for me because I've got commitments with them playing themselves. But I do like the midweek away games. I always try and make those ones, and I'll try and get to the teams that we've not seen before: Tamworth, Boston's, Forest Greens. Haven't been to Sutton for a long time, so those sorts of teams. I always like you. I like going to new grounds. Being a Wealdstone fan, we're more used to grounds rather than stadiums. So these bigger stadiums that we get to see in the National League is always a bit of fun, as well as the quirky, characterful ones that we see, the likes of Maidenhead and Aldershot, Altrincham, and what have you.
Yeah, it certainly is. And for those who are watching tonight, and maybe for the first time, I'm guessing there'll be quite a few new listeners from the promoted clubs and the sides that have come down tonight, even those who are not watching this live but are watching this afterwards. What me and Paul did for the last season was we had our own predictions league. So every game week, myself and Paul will predict all the National League games that were on. And if you got the scoreline correct, which is like 3-2, 2-1, you'd get 3 points. Now, if you got the result correct, so let's say you said they were going to win 1-0 and they ended up winning 2-0, you'd get 1 point. And if you didn't get it at all, not even the result correct, then you would get no points. Now, last season for ourselves, we had a bit of a wager on it, not in money terms, but what we had to do last season for the loser had to wear a rival's team shirt. Fortunately for myself, I managed to win last season, and my rival would have been Rochdale, as I'm a Halifax fan. For Paul, though, him being a Wealdstone fan, you had to wear a Barnet shirt at the end of the season. That's not something that you'll be wanting to do again, is it, Paul?
No, definitely not. I mean, our mutual friend Trevor, who supports Barnet, very kindly sent me a shirt from, I think it was from the 2000s. It was a Nicky Bailey EFL shirt. So it was the only one he had that fitted me because I'm a little bit bigger than I was when I played myself. So, I don't want to be sticking that Barnet shirt on again at the end of the season, Luke. So I'm going to try my best. But I think it's going to be very difficult for both of us who really predict well every week because it's such an unpredictable league.
Yeah, it certainly is. And we've actually done, of course, our actual predictions that we've previously talked a little bit about. I've said go check them out. Remember to check those out again. We might have to even add that towards the final score at the end of the season, maybe add a point for every prediction we got from there at the end of the season to make it a little bit more interesting, because that's something you did beat me on last season. The actual predictions that we did, you did a lot better than myself on those. So maybe at the end of the season, to make it a little bit more fair, maybe give you a bit of a chance. We'll add that on as well. But no, we'll have a look at the live chat then, see who's in tonight. Bilbo Baggins is here, Oldham fan. He said, Oldham Athletic Football Club fan. Top 2 this season. Of course, they're a club that I've got quite a lot of criticism for where I've predicted them. I've actually said that they would come 12th this season, which is a very low prediction for Oldham. And as soon as I said that, a couple of hours later, they go and sign a player that had played over 30 games in League One last season. So that basically tells you how the predictions have started going at the moment. But I will be sticking with that. For yourself, Paul, you put them 5th this season or 6th?
Sixth, yeah, 6th. Yeah. I can sort of see they've got to get themselves sorted at some point. And I think this season's one of those seasons that they've got that opportunity to, because it's a much more level playing field. And Mickey Mellon, like we said on predictions, he's got rid of a lot of the recruitment from last year. He's thinned the squad. He knows what he wants. And I personally can't see him doing as badly as they did last year. They didn't do, listen, finishing in the top half of the National League is not a disgrace. It's just for Oldham, they've got expectations of a lot higher, being a Premier League founder in the 90s and being in the EFL for so long. So I can understand the frustrations of their fans in terms of, wanting to be up there and challenging. And I genuinely think they will. Like I said, they've got to make Boundary part of the fortress, which they didn't do last season.
Yeah, I'm not so sure on that with the players that they've brought in. I know there's a lot of Oldham fans out there that are quite optimistic about this season. At the start of a few weeks ago, they were all quite negative and down, and there's still, I think, a percentage of the fan base that still is. Maybe that's just been an Oldham fan because there hasn't been too much positivity on the football field happening there for a number of seasons now. But for myself, I look at the squad and I just don't feel that it's good enough to be inside the playoffs. The signings that they've made, they don't amaze me. For me, I know that's something that a lot of Oldham fans would disagree with, and they'd say, well, they're Mickey Mellon's type of players. They might not look good on paper, but they're players that have proven themselves at this level. But for me, I'm just not too confident on Oldham next season. I think going forward, I can't see them scoring loads of goals, and I think that's something that you've got to do to fight yourselves into the playoffs, unless you're very, very good defensively. He's also said that Southend will come top this season. Of course, they're a side that the first season where there's no issues in the background for them. It's all calm. They can purely focus on the football field this season. So you'd like to think that they'll be able to improve on what an impressive season they had last season.
Oh, without a doubt, like we said before, if they hadn't had that points deduction, they would have been in the playoffs and pushing for a promotion. The challenge Southend have got now is because they've got no problems off the field is, what do they do on the field? Do they carry on with that sort of siege mentality, them against the world sort of scenario, and Kevin Mayer and Darren Curry having that tiny squad and having the players that he had on a constant basis? Does he dilute that with players? Does it get bigger? Does the pressure come off and then come on in a different way? It's a challenge for Southend because they are one of the bigger teams in the league. Roots Hall is a great little stadium to go to. They've got a brilliant fan base. They've now got an ownership that wants the football club. So, I put them in 4th place and I can see them really challenging. And I just hope that, for their sake, that they don't sort of slip up because they've now not got pressures elsewhere.
Yeah. That's something that we have seen with clubs before. They've done well when there's been a lot of issues there. And then as soon as it feels like it's, settled down and everything's sorted, players kind of get a little bit too carried away. And I think Southend last season, it kind of felt like that, didn't it, to a certain extent at times? When it felt like everything was looking up, they kind of slipped off a little bit. I personally thought at times last season that was, but they seem to always probably play to the best of their ability and pick the best results out when something drastic happened, like I'm getting a -10 points deduction. It kind of gave them that added motivation and determination to spur themselves on, and that's something that you hope that they'll be able to do without now it settling down there and there being no issues off the field. He's also said promoted Forest Green Rovers, coming down from the division. I can't remember the last side that managed to get promoted automatically after they'd just been relegated from the Football League. I think it would have been Cheltenham. I know Grimsby got promoted straight back up, but they'd finished inside the playoffs. And then Stingstone, who's a Maidstone fan, has come in and said, feels like it's Christmas Eve today. Yeah, of course, Maidstone competing in the National League South. We were kind of rooting for you in the playoffs to get promoted, but hopefully you can get promoted this season in the National League South. And then Big Bad Bob is in tonight, the Oldham fan. He said, evening all. And Mr. Luke, of course, someone that's always in. This is something that I think we need to bring to fans' attention before we actually read Luke's comment here. Is what we've started doing is, for myself, we've got a membership scheme now to the channel where if you become a member, I think it's only like £2 a month or something like that, you can use like custom emojis for your club. So, for example, I know Gateshead there, we've got their badge on there, so you can actually put Gateshead's badge in the comments below. I think Aldershot's the same. I think Oldham, and then I think it's Southend at the moment. But for those who become members, once we know what club we support, we'll add your badge as well. What we're also hoping to do, there's loyalty badges as well that you can use. And we're hoping to probably bring bonus content out in the next couple of weeks as well, that you can check out, some bonus interviews as well, just only available to members. And what we might do is as well extend the interviews that we've done so far in the future. And then for those who are members, we'll get an extended version of interviews. That doesn't mean that for anyone who don't become a member, because I know times are difficult and not everyone will be wanting to do that, it won't affect the content on here at the moment. It just means if you become a member, you can get added content as well. But anyway, that's enough of self-promotion. We'll look at Mr. Luke's comment here, and he's put, good evening, gents. Hope you are well. Great to see you back doing the predictions. Cannot wait for tomorrow. Feels like Christmas Eve today. You know the drill, though, no pressure at all. Good to see Mr. Luke back in the live chat, isn't it, Paul?
Yeah, it's always nice to have the positive sort of regulars, I guess. And Mr. Luke always makes sure that we don't have any pressure on ourselves to make sure Gateshead get a good result. But I've already put myself under pressure. I put them as 5th, Mr. Luke. So we'll have to see how they get on next season.
Ash has come in, Paul.
Evening all. Looking forward to another cracking season. Not an easy start for all the shots opening for you, but we will get through it. Yeah, I mean, they overachieved last year, didn't they, the shots? And, sometimes that's difficult to replicate, especially as they've lost Tolaj and Stokes, which are two real main threats that they had up top. So, yeah, again, Tommy Widgington, he's recruited well, and, he goes into the market of players he knows and finds little gems. And I think signing James Henry's not a bad little good signing for them in terms of experience in the midfield to help his younger troops. So, yeah, it's going to be tough for everyone to start. Everyone wants to start well. Everyone wants to get points on the board, get a bit of confidence and momentum.
Yeah, Aldershot, of course, are at home to Forest Green, one of the favourites. That won't be an easy game for them, but with them having the home advantage, I think down at Aldershot last season, the EBE, I think it is still, it's called, they changed names a few seasons ago, was a bit of a fortress there last season, I felt, and that's something that was really strong for them. And I think it was actually their away form that let them down in the end last season. And then Toby, who's a Braintree fan, has come in and said, why have you got Braintree so low? Made some quality signings. I think we both had him 18th, I believe. And to be fair, to say they've just been promoted, I don't think that'd be a bad position for Braintree. I know they've made a lot of signings, but I just feel with the amount of signings that they've made, we both spoke, didn't we, about consistency with the amount of signings that they've made, and then being able to gel as a team. It might take a little bit of time. But for me, with Braintree, I don't think 18's a bad prediction. I was considering putting them higher, but I just think with them just getting into the National League for the first time, it's going to take a bit of time to be able to push on.
Oh, yeah, without doubt. That was a similar feeling to what I was thinking as well, to be honest, Luke. And for Toby's sake, it's not a slight on Braintree. I think the business they've done is unbelievable compared to the likes of Tamworth and Boston, and maybe even the likes of Wealdstone and Woking. To go out and get the players they've got from the teams they got them from, fantastic bit of business. It just, hopefully Toby did see Braintree in the National League a few seasons ago. You understand the step up from South to the National League is a big step. So, I think they've got the quality. Can they get that gel and that consistency? And if they can, I can't see any reason why they can't be any higher than 18th. And they could be one of the surprise teams. But it's a tough league, National League, and when you come into it, you've got to respect it. And they have by the signings they made. And I just think that's, an 18th is a decent finish for them, and they can build on that for the season after.
Lee's coming, who's a Dagenham fan, and said, "Evening, fellas, just dropping in to say great job on all the content, Paul. Let's let the best team win tomorrow." Yeah, you guys were away at Dagenham tomorrow.
Yeah, we've got the Daggers. It's an unusual. I don't know how we're going to fare. You know, we've had a half decent pre-season. We've made a few signings through the middle of the park. New goalie, new centre back, a few new centre midfield players, a new centre forward, new manager on the sidelines who's unproven at this level and not really done too much in the EFL. So it's a new look Wealdstone. They'll probably have a different way of playing to what Stewie Maynard had, and we all got used to in the National League in terms of that sort of ball retention, playing through the thirds type football. So, and as we spoke about Dagenham, they've got a very good manager. I like Ben Strevens a lot. I think I've got a lot of time for him at this level, and he knows the league, and he's made some really good additions up top. So it's a really difficult one to predict. So I just hope that we get off to a winning start, because we've had good starts in the National League and sort of held on towards the end of season. So we've got to do that again, because we're one of the favourites to go down, I think.
And then we've had Declan Proctor, I think that is coming in and said, "Fingers crossed, points on the board for Aldershot Town. 1-1, I predict tomorrow." Lockie Munro, I will admit, he's one of my mates. He's a Huddersfield fan and said, I think he meant up the Shaman. Cheers for tuning in, Lachlan. And then we've had Toby, who's come and said, Oldham v Braintree, 1-0 Braintree. I won't put it past Oldham, to be fair. And then we've had Bob, who's come and said, think some comments about Oldham look inaccurate. I don't think we'll be playing hoofball from pre-season. We've been tidy and playing along the floor. However, I agree that we won't make playoffs. This is just my opinion on it. I'll be honest, and this is something that we'll admit on this podcast. We're not going to watch pre-season for every single team. So we don't actually know what to expect from certain teams this season. I'm going off how Oldham played last season and the manager they've got in place. Now, Mickey Mellon as a manager is someone that's been known to play quite an industrial style of football, and that's how he got Tranmere out of the National League. That's something that I felt Oldham was still playing last season, and I'd say it's something that a lot of Oldham fans can probably agree with. It wasn't pretty football last season at Oldham. So for me, I've not watched pre-season. They might have changed the style for all I know, and that's something that we're going to see probably tomorrow and as the season does progress. But yeah, you've agreed that they don't make the playoffs, and that's totally fine. And then we've had Toby's come in and said, are you going to the game tomorrow? If you mean our own games, yes, I'll be going to Halifax v Barnet. And Paul, you're making the trip to Dagenham?
No, unfortunately, I'm not making the trip to Dagenham. I can't do it tomorrow, it's unheard of. I've always done the first game of the season for a number of years, but I've got other things on tomorrow. So my first game will be at home versus Oldham at the Vale next week. But I will try and make as many away games as I can. Dagenham's one of the more local ones for me. It's still an hour and a bit away. But no, unfortunately, Toby, it would have been good to say hello. But let's just hope it's a good game for us, and we'll see the best team will hopefully win.
And then Harry's coming, who's a York fan, and said, evening, lads. Welcome to the stream, Harry. Good to see you joining us. And then we've had David. I'll allow you to read this out, Paul, as it's our friends from Maidenhead.
Yeah, hi, David. Evening, lads. Hope your summer's been good. Not much has changed. Luke still predicts us to go down. Yes, yeah. David, hi. It's great summer, looking at with interest at all the National League movements, many players moving between teams, many lads dropping out of the EFL and academy football, a few of those making a step up from regional football to try their luck in National League. So, yeah, lots of movement. Exciting one maybe for Maidenhead on the horizon with the money from Max Kilman's transfer, and whether that goes into the playing squads, investment in the playing squads, or whether it goes into the ground investment, we wait to see. But because of that, I haven't put Maidenhead to go down, because Alan Devonshire is a wily old fox, and year on year he beats all those predictors and keeps them up. So I think that will happen again.
Sean's coming, who's a Gateshead fan, has said, he has actually said Gateshead fan here first for us this season. That's quite an ambitious prediction. But then on the other side, and it might be similar to Southend last season, where when bad news happened for them and something hit them, it gave them that added motivation to go on and improve. And maybe that's something that Gateshead will be wanting to do. They've got something to prove this season. With what happened last season at the end, which was so unfortunate. It's either going to go either way. They're either going to look at it like, oh, stuff it, we've got no chance, or they're going to come into the season thinking, right, last season you didn't give us a chance. This season we're going to get another chance and be able to do well this season. And for me, I predicted you to finish just outside of the playoffs. I kept changing it between you and Fylde, who I put in the playoffs. But Paul, you, of course, put them in the playoffs this season.
Yeah, I have done. And excellent football inside, probably the best football inside in the National League. Rob Elliott sort of took the mantle from Mike Williams and carried it on. And, they lost a lot of players in January with loan signings going back to their parent clubs to go higher up the chain because they've done so well at this level. And, losing some of their best players in the January transfer window didn't seem to hamper them. The only thing that did hamper them was the council's problem with the ground and not being able to get in the playoffs. So I just think that they're just a good, well-established National League side now. They play superb football, up at their ground, which isn't the best place to go as a supporter, I guess, as a player, and they use that to their advantage. But love watching Gateshead play, and they're a breath of fresh air, and they seem to buck the trend a little bit because they probably haven't got the biggest budget, they haven't got the biggest fan base, they haven't got the best ground, but they play the best football and they seem to really draw results when they need them.
Harry's coming and said expecting 500 to 600 York fans going to Southend tomorrow. This is a Southend fan. He's got his own page on Twitter and Instagram if you'd like to check him out there. I think it's SUFC News, I believe. Kev Mayer, Dan Curry and Co are the best things that happen to the club. And I do think without them, we wouldn't be a club anymore. I think that's something we can agree on. Part of the reason for me why the National League, to a certain extent, were quite lenient on Southend was because they were performing so well last season. And it's such a good story that kind of added attention to Southend. And that might be part of the reason why Justin Rees and the consortium has gone to Southend and thought, yeah, that's the sort of club that we want to be investing in and saving. And then Jimbo's come and said Braintree Town took Joe Greenwood, I think it is, Grindwood, on loan from Barnet today, and it made me look at their squad. Well, stick a couple more decent midfielders in there, and that's a hell of a squad if used correctly. Yeah, that's something we agree on, and him coming in, I know he was at Braintree last season and got a move to Barnet, and then now he's been loaned back to the side. Something I want to know with Braintree, where's all this money coming from? Because I've never seen Braintree as a side that's been able to splash the cash like they are doing at the moment. And this is no disrespect to Braintree, but with the budget that they've got, due to like the fans that they've got, that they get on average attendances, you wouldn't expect a club like that to be able to be bringing in the quality of players that they are doing, especially when it's your first season in the National League. But I'm all for it as long as they can afford it.
Yeah, and it doesn't really matter where the money's come from. They've just got to invest it wisely. What you don't want them to do is they end up struggling and have to spend more in January and get rid of some of these players and have a squad overhaul. I can't see it happening. They have got a hell of a squad for a newly promoted side, and good luck to them. I think they'll comfortably stay in this division, and they could surprise a few with what they've got. And Angela Harrison is a very well respected manager, and good luck to him at this level. He's got his opportunity now, and he's really done well in this pre-season to get those players in. And do you know what? They've probably got those players in because of him and because of his philosophy and the way he wants to play. I know when Wealdstone were looking for a manager, his name was bandied about amongst supporters because he'd done so well with them in the National League South and the way that he played football and the fit that he would have made to that particular team. So, I would be expecting a good brand of football from Braintree. Got some exciting forwards, some experienced forwards in there as well as other players. So, yeah, good luck to them. And I hope they stay in the league. They were here a couple of years ago. They dropped back out and have come back in. So, I think they're a good addition to the league.
Chris has come and said, good morning from chilly Melbourne. Latics defensively seem more solid now. We should win more games with clean sheets. Proof of this needs to start at home tonight. Of course, he's in Melbourne, so that's probably why it says tonight, for those who are wondering, as he'll be in Australia. But no, Chris, thanks for your comment. And then we've also had coming in tonight, John is coming. He's a Dagenham fan, another Dagenham fan. Evening all. New season hopes and dreams. Good luck to supporters and teams. 2-1 Daggers. Sorry, Paul.
That's fair enough. I think tomorrow could go either way. You'll see my prediction later on, but Dagenham are a bit of an unknown because they have a bit of a squad change, and let's just see how they react to Ben Strevens and how well they start, because they were hugely inconsistent last year. I think if they can add a bit of consistency to their season, then they're going to be challenging up the top end rather than the bottom end.
Ali's coming, he's a Woking fan, and we don't really want to answer this question because it's so negative, but we said, hi guys, where do you think Woking might finish? Enjoy the football, lads. We both put you in the drop zone, so yeah, a lot of it's down to the financial issues. I think we can both admit that. That's probably one of the majority, well, the main reason for me why I've put you in the drop zone, and you'll have more detail on that. But overall, and this is something that you'll probably disagree with, but I look at the players that you've lost and the players that you've replaced, and I'm not actually too impressed. You know, Harry Beautyman's come in, was someone that was very good for Sutton when they got promoted, but you know, he's in new surroundings now, and I think in an overall poor working side, how's he going to do? You know, Keane Harries has come in from Aldershot. You know, Aldershot last season defensively were very poor. You know, he scored a lot of goals from the defence, but defensively, I didn't particularly rate him last season. So for me, I think defensively he could be poor. Yeah, is that something that you'd agree with, Paul? Or
yeah, it's difficult. They had such a negative season last year. They just couldn't get out of it, could they? They were just week on week. I think we were thinking they were going to sort of pick up because of where they'd finished the the seasons before. And to be fair to Michael Doyle, you know, he did manage to get them out of that relegation issue, and they ended up staying up comfortably. But you know, they've had a massive overhaul, haven't they? They've got rid of a lot of players, and who they brought in, do they better what they've let go? It's difficult to say. And I just think, you know, the off-field issues, no matter how much they try and separate them from on the field and off the field, there's going to be those sort of niggling sort of doubts, things hanging over the players and the management. And I'm sure if Woking start well and a few of their players do well, then clubs will come in for them in the transfer window because they'll need the money and all that sort of thing. So, yeah, who knows with Woking? They're a tough, physical National League side. That it's not the best place to go because they do make their home ground a little bit difficult to play at, and that's good for them, you know. And I just can see them struggling next season, and I hope they don't because they've been there a long time. But you know, someone's got to go down. We have to pick someone, and we'd sort of, I guess, using those sort of theories to put Woking in that position.
The Southend fans come and said, atmosphere at Roots Hall will be unbelievable tomorrow. Yeah, be York. I think for me, I look at all the games, I'd say that's game of the game week. You know, York investing so much, you know, into this season. Quite a number of players have come into the squad. You also look at Southend, who are now in the clear, like we've mentioned. Now one can look, you know, both clubs are looking like the well-run clubs at the moment. So, you know, that should be a really good game tomorrow. You know, big home crowd, and I'm sure York will take a good number down. I think a York fan mentioned there 500 to 600 are going to be going down. Someone said looking forward to Braintree away. I think that's an Oldham fan who said that. Oh no, a Gateshead fan who said that. Yeah, that'll be a long one for you guys. And then we've also come in tonight. We've had Kian, who's an Oldham fan. I think Kian. I'm sorry if I've pronounced that wrong. Then we've also had Cardinals Ultras, who's another Woking fan, has said red and white pray. Yeah, you'll be hoping so this season. And then I think coming in tonight, we've had, just trying to go down the chat now, see what people are saying before we get on with the predictions. We've had a Rochdale fan who's come in. Halifax will go one better this season and finish third in the league this season. Oh, you're too kind, especially as a Rochdale fan. I'm certainly going to take that. And then Toby's coming and said, Luke and Paul, will you be covering the National League if you get relegated or promotion, or will you be doing the respective leagues? That's not something we want. That's why we support Halifax and Wealdstone, because we don't usually have those issues. You know, since we started the podcast a few years ago, Halifax have been in this league. I personally can't see us getting relegated or promoted this season, to be honest. Wealdstone, I don't know. Something. It's not just Wealdstone on the line now, is it, Paul? It's your placement on the podcast.
I know. You might not be seeing me next season. I think Luke got a bit twitchy when Wealdstone were sort of knocking around fourth and fifth from bottom last year. So, Listen, I'll still look after the National League, look out for it. But yeah, I guess if either of our teams do get promoted or relegated, then I suppose transfer talks have to be made with maybe a different presenter, etc. But we'll worry about that on sort of week 38 or whatever it is. Week 1. Let's enjoy week 1 first.
Yeah, I have to admit, last season, Paul, I was shortlisting all the potential co-hosts when I saw Wheelstone were down there. Now, I'm only joking. But no, yeah, it's something that we'd probably consider if it did happen. For the moment, we're not concerned about that. And then we've also had coming tonight, I think Jimbo's coming, Paul.
I like Strevs, but Daggers have been underperforming for years. Really strange what's gone on there. Always thought McMahon was going to turn it around, but owners just lost faith. It was a really odd one, Jimbo. I looked at sort of Dagenham, not last season, the back end of the season before when Strevs come in, and it was a bit of an asset stripping exercise. He seemed to get rid of more players than he can sign. And last year, it just felt that their recruitment just really wasn't sort of on it, for a team of Dagenham's size. But I know there's been a bit of an issue off the field, and you'll know more than we will in terms of the ownership, the American consortium, etc., and how much money is going into the club. But I think faith has got to be put in Ben Strevens to sort of do well this season, and his recruitment seems to be a bit better this time around. The likes of Uma and Moraes up top, a good signing. So we'll see how they go. They've got to start well because like a lot of teams in that sort of mid-table last year, they're just a little bit inconsistent, and that doesn't allow you to have a run of games to be able to sort of push into the playoffs. So we'll see how they get on. I hope it doesn't start on tomorrow on Saturday, but I'm sure they'll do okay.
For me, Dagenham, I'm quite optimistic about them this season. They're a club, like he's mentioned there, and I understand what he's saying totally, because they're a club when they first came down, had quite a lot of money and actually got into the playoffs the first season they came down. And ever since, they've been mid-table, lower mid-table for the majority of the seasons. And yeah, it just doesn't seem like it's going quite right there. They've clearly had money in the past, and I don't know if they've spent that in the right ways. I don't think they've always picked the best managers. But for me, with Ben Strevens, there's clearly a project going on there. There's a bit of a blueprint, I feel. And I think for Dagenham now, I can only see them improving on what they did last season. I think they're a better side. I think players in that squad are only going to get better. And that's something that I think they'll do this season. And then we've also had coming tonight. We've also had Jimbo's also come and said will be really interesting to see who Southend sign over the next month or so. Management team worked wonders there last season. Thank God they are back on track. Yeah, for me, something with Southend, I think they'll be trying to keep as much of the squad together and trying to do very little business as possible when I think about it, because they're clearly a tight group. They clearly get on very well, within the group. So why would you want to change that and bring in a bunch of new players, which means you're going to have to boot players out. So for me, I think they're going to try to keep as much stability as possible and just add a little bit of depth to it like they already have done this season. And then Ali said, has anything been done regarding the pitch at the Share, Luke? Not to my knowledge, no. It'll probably look proper nice for the first couple of games of the season, like it always does, and then it'll go downhill in the winter months. And then finally, we've had Oldham will finish top 3. We'll be one of the best teams, definitely, this season. Yeah, we'll wait. We'll wait and see. I think we're probably at a point now where we will actually have a look at doing our National League predictions. For those that have, of course, joined late, this is how the prediction league goes then. Basically, if you get the scoreline correct, so you say like 2-1, 3-2, and it turns out to be 3-2 or 2-1 to that team, then you will get 3 points. If you said that they're going to win like 1-0 and they end up winning 2-0, then you'll get 1 point. And if you get the result totally incorrect, so you say they're going to win and they end up losing, then you will get 0 points. So it's pretty easy to get the hang of. So yeah, we will get straight into it then. So just as I'm putting that on screen, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Liking gets it out to more National League fans. Subscribing builds the community up even more, and you'll never miss an episode if you do that. Also, check out our sponsors. A link will be in the description. Cards accepted. If you use the link in the description, you will get 50% off your card machine. Also, don't hesitate to drop me a message if you'd like to learn more about that and how you can purchase one as well. So yeah, I think we're probably at a point now where I can put it on screen. Yeah, right. Oh, we're giving Safari a bit of free advertisement there. But we'll come down to the predictions now. That's not predictions. Right then. I think we'll have to do it this way, to be honest, Paul. It's been a bit weird.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, we'll start this way. I'm going to try big start. But yeah, first game then. AFC Fylde v Solihull Moors then. I'll just highlight it so people know that we're talking about that fixture. How do you see it going then, Paul?
I think like any of these fixtures, Luke, week one is always going to be probably a real sort of stab in the dark compared to most weeks because we have got no form really to go against apart from who they might have released and who they've signed and who's injured and who was in form at the back end of last year. I put Fylde sort of quite low down within the league, and Solihull, I think, will have to start well again like they did last year, and they had an absolute stormer, didn't they? I think they went unbeaten for about 2 or 3 months. So I've gone with a 2-2 draw. I think pitches this time of year are always going to be decent. You know, they are generally throughout the season, but you know, certain teams have issues with their pitches, etc. You know, the weather should be good up there in the northwest. So I've gone with a 2-2 draw. Both teams are capable of scoring goals now. Fylde weren't so much at the beginning of last season, but I think they're both capable of scoring goals. So I've gone with a 2-2 draw.
That's not the best start for the predictions. I've also gone for a 2-2 draw. Like you mentioned there, I think both sides are capable of scoring goals. Solihull going forward, you know, Fylde, the other side for me, I think will be a bit of a dark horse this season. So yeah, I'm going to agree with you there and go for a 2-2 draw. Also, get your predictions in the live chat. And as it is the first game week, please keep tally of your predictions if you tune in every single week, and then we'll add them up at the end of the season. You can see how many points you're getting compared to us. So John's come and said 1-0 to Solihull, 2-1 Solihull Moors, 4-0 Solihull Moors. Toby's come in and said 1-1. Ash has said. We've had Colin who's come in and said 2-2 like us, 2-1 Solihull. 3-0 Solihull Moors, I believe. Yeah, no, 3-0 Fylde, that must be. And then we've also had 2-0 Solihull Moors. Keep your predictions coming in, guys. We'll move on to the next fixture now. We are on to Aldershot versus Forest Green. Of course, you look at Aldershot finishing 8th last season, just outside of the playoffs. They've lost a lot of key players on the forward front. So I do think they're going to be weak going forward. But defensively, I think they've recruited very well this season. And, you know, that was something that they were clearly vulnerable at last season, was defensively. So if they've tightened that up, you'd like to think they'll be in a fairly decent position. And they're hosting Forest Green Rovers, who've come down. But come down, I think, in a fairly comfortable position. There's no issues off the field there. They've not been afraid to splash the cash with some of the players that they've brought in. The likes of Ben Tozer coming in, Sercombe's coming to the side as well, from Cheltenham and Tom Knowles as well. How do you see it going then, Paul?
I've gone with the shots 1, Forest Green Rovers 3. And then I think Forest Green were going to want to make a statement, aren't they? They come down, probably a lot of people's favourites, along with the likes of Barnet and Southend, to get promoted again. So I think they got to make a bit of a statement. Shots are going to be a little bit different up top with the loss of Taylage and Stoke. So we'll have to see how they adapt. I could just see Forest Green just being a bit too strong. And what you've got to also consider, Luke, is a lot of these games, you know, mainly every one of the squad's going to be available. So you'd imagine they're going to be playing their strongest possible teams. You know, haven't got suspensions and injuries to concern themselves with. Unless, of course, someone gets injured in pre-season. That does happen, but, you know, not so much on a consistent basis, maybe throughout the season. So, you know, they're going to go in fresh, strong, new signings, wanting to make a statement. And, you know, Aldershot's got a lovely pitch. You know, and that will allow Forest Green to play. And I could just see them being too strong for shots at 3-1.
I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw myself. Jimbo's come in and said Shots home win. Forest Green are not going to enjoy this season anywhere near as much as some are anticipating. Double relegations and no accident. I can't see that with the players that they've brought in. The likes of Ben Tozer, Sercombe, Knowles has come into the side as well. And having Steve Cottrell as a manager, I can't see them falling through the net and getting relegated this season. But to be fair, it's an out there prediction, so I do respect it. And, you know, if they're anywhere near the drop zone, we'll highlight this comment and we'll come back to you at the end of the season if you do get that correct. But for me, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw for myself. Next one, then, we've got Altrincham versus Woking. Of course, we spoke about Woking in quite a negative way. Altrincham finishing inside the playoffs last season. Can they do that again with Chris Con-Clark leaving the club? I've said no. I think they're going to drop off a little bit and finish 11th. Paul, I think you put them 9th. But I do think they're going to win this game. I think they're going to win this game 2-0. How do you see it going, Paul?
Yeah, I've said exactly the same. Yeah. I think Woking maybe have more of a chance. They were at home. You know, they've got to start well at home and make that count for them if they're going to struggle this season. If they're going to struggle this season, they may not. But I think we agree that they could. Altrincham, you know, they have overachieved, I feel, over the last couple of seasons where they've gone from part-time to full-time, and you know they seem to get a consistent run of decent footballers that, you know, end up going up the chain, if you like, up the food chain. So will they do as well as last year? I don't think they will, like you, Luke. But I think tomorrow they'll win 2-0 being at home against Woking.
Yeah, I will agree with you on that. Next game then that we've got Boston versus Rochdale, newly promoted Boston playing Rochdale. Second season now for Rochdale in this division. Of course, last season finished, I think, 11th in the end for Rochdale. Last season, lost a lot of key players this season, but recruited as well with replacements that on paper look quite impressive. For me, I've put them 14th this season, which is quite a low prediction, finishing lower than last season. I just think the league is getting stronger, and I overall don't think the squad's as good as what it was last season. People will disagree with that. But newly promoted Boston, a side that I put in the drop zone this season. However, I think with it being the first game of the season, Boston, they'll probably have a big crowd there, will be wanting to impress. I think they're going to win this game, actually, against Rochdale, and I'm going to go for a 3-1 Boston win. How do you see it going, Paul?
I've gone a 1-0 win to Rochdale. I think, you know, they're going to go into this league a little bit more positive. There was a little bit of uncertainty around them last season, wasn't there? But, you know, Jim McNulty signed a new deal. They've got new ownership off the field. They've had a season now in the league, having come out of the EFL, and you know they didn't sort of go around chucking their weight around thinking, you know, we're from the EFL, we're big time, we should get out of this league. You know, they respected it, and I think Jim McNulty's been given a 3-year deal for a reason, and I think that's to sort of build, consolidate. You know, almost take their time and get themselves back into the Football League if they can, on more of an even keel financially. So I think they're going to be quite strong. I have put them mid-table this season, but you know, they're going to be times where they're going to be strong. And Boston at home, when you get promoted, is always a good thing to be. You know, you have a home tie, your first one, but I can just see Rochdale winning that 1-0.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you on that one then. We'll move on to the next game now. Your side, of course, travelling to Dagenham versus Wealdstone. And Dagenham are a side I'm quite optimistic about this season. I think they've recruited very well. Pereira's come back to the club. Junior Moraes, of course, making a return after he made that move to Notts County. It don't feel like he's kicked on there. So I think it's a smart move for him to go back to Dagenham, where he can hopefully rediscover his form. And I think for Dagenham as well, to have him back on the forward line, I think it'll improve them as well. And you know, with Dagenham, for me, I'm quite confident about them this season, playing against a Wealdstone side that I'm a little nervous about. I'll be honest, Paul. I think they're just going to survive this season. But for me, I think Dagenham being at home, I do think Dagenham are going to push on this season. So I'm actually going to go for I'm actually going to go for a 4-1 Dagenham win. How do you see it going, Paul?
I'm slightly more positive. I've gone with a 2-2 draw. Yeah, we've done okay there over the last few years. Really, I think we always put up a bit of a good fight, and it's going to be a really difficult one for Wealdstone fans this season because we really don't know what to expect. We got so used to what Stewie Maynard and Matt Saunders was about and what their teams were about. So, we're going into this with a new manager. So tomorrow is a real sort of test in terms of what we expect on the league front. It's always difficult pre-season, new players, trialists, different formations potentially. So it's a difficult one for me to predict. I don't think Wealdstone are going to go down. I think they'll put a fight until the end because that's what they do as a football club. But I know Dagenham. Well, I don't know, but I feel Dagenham will be an improved side from last year, and I hope that we come away there with a draw. So I've gone for 2-2.
Yeah, of course, I put them just to survive this season in 20th place ahead of Woking. But I do think it's going to be a long season for Wealdstone and for yourself, Paul. And I think I'm going to be nervous for you as well this season. But no, next one then, my side then now, which might be an opportunity for you to pay me back here, Paul. Halifax v Barnet. Barnet, of course, the outright favourites according to the bookies this season. Dean Brennan seems to think they're the favourites too. And Chris Millington's actually come out and said he relishes taking on title favourites. And that's something that I think Halifax fans can clearly relate to with as probably doing better against the so-called better sides in the last couple of seasons. We beat Bromley and Chesterfield at home last season. The previous season to that, Wrexham we managed to defeat at home. So we're clearly good against the so-called better sides. And for me, I think this is another example of that. I genuinely think that we might go into this game and surprise a few. And I might be being a little bit biased here, but I'm going to go for a 1-0 Halifax Town win. Barnet finished on 86 points last season. I think the points total this season is going to be a lot lower because I think the league's going to be so open. And I think 3 teams are going to be in the title race. I could actually see it going down to the final day. But I think for the opening game of the season, Barnet clearly brought in a lot of players. Of course, they're quality players, but it's still going to take time for them to bed in. So I'm actually going to go for a 1-0 Halifax win. Maybe I'm being a little bit biased there. How do you see it going, Paul?
I've gone with a 1-1 draw. Barnet are definitely one of the favourites, if not the favourite amongst many. Dean Brennan and Tony Clanthos have really looked at this sort of opportunity with it being a more of a level playing field and feel that this is their time to get out of it. I know they've had a couple of injuries in pre-season, but they've got squad depth is incredible. So he won't be worried about what team he puts out tomorrow, if that's for sure, Dean Brennan. And it's probably a better time to go and play Halifax when the pitch is in good nick, the weather's good. It's a long, hard season, and travelling to Halifax midweek, etc., is always a toughie. So they've got Halifax on a good day. But I just think defensively, I know they've lost a couple Halifax, but they've always sort of built on that, haven't they, Luke? You know that as more than I do. They've always been more impressive defensively than offensively, maybe in the last couple of seasons. So I can't see many goals in it purely because Halifax haven't got a huge amount of firepower. Barnet definitely have, but I think Halifax defensively are very, very good. So I'm going with a 1-1 draw.
I'd take that as well, to be fair. Gateshead v Ebbsfleet then. 2 sides that I'm quite optimistic about this season. I think Ebbsfleet will be able to stabilise like they did last season. I don't see them pushing on too much, but I think they'll be fine when I've seen a lot of people actually tipping them to go down this season. For Gateshead, though, I think they'll be in a similar position to what they were last season as well. I think this will be quite a high-scoring game. Both sides have clearly got goals in them from last season. Ebbsfleet got the likes of Coley and going forward. Gateshead, you just know they're just a side that will score goals. The whole team has got goals in it. So I'm going to actually go for a 3-2 Gateshead win. How do you see it going, Paul?
I've gone with a 3-1 Gateshead win. I have put Ebbsfleet in the bottom 4, and I think they did improve last year. When I saw them at their ground against Wealdstone, I did think they were pretty good considering they were struggling down towards the bottom end. And getting the new management in has certainly helped them. But I don't know whether they've recruited massively. Have they? There's no standout names. There's no one's really talked about them too much, and I could just see them being a bit of a struggle for them. And like I said before, Gateshead, excellent football inside, have had a good pre-season, scored lots of goals, so I can see them taking that into this opener and winning 3-1.
Maidenhead United beat Eastleigh then. Two sides for myself that I think are going to be down there this season. I say that, and as soon as I spoke quite negative about Eastleigh going to announce squad numbers. I know it doesn't mean too much, but McCallum's on there, so he's going to be playing tomorrow. So he's probably going to stay with the side for the first quarter of the season or so now. And Niall Marr came in, and I can speak about him from his time at Halifax, and he's a quality centre half and a great addition for Eastleigh. So yeah, that's nice when you've just done a prediction and spoken quite negative about a club and put them down there for them to go and announce a signing like that. But of course, they're travelling to Maidenhead, a side that I've tipped to go down like I do every season, and they always prove me wrong. But I think this will be a 1-1 draw for me. How do you see it going, Paul?
I've gone 1-0 to Maidenhead. Purely they're at home. I think Eastleigh, not the most exciting team in the National League, never have been. They sort of go along their way under the radar. Don't cause too much bother either way. Kelvin Davis doesn't excite me as a manager. Their recruitment has been okay, and I think a lot of fans see them going to struggle in the National League. I have put them in sort of 15th, 16th place with Maidenhead, so I think this is going to be a just below mid-table clash, and probably the most unexciting fixture of week one, if we're completely honest. That's no disrespect to those two teams, but let's see how Maidenhead do with that Max Kilman transfer and the Kitty coming in. They haven't gone and splashed the cash just yet, but that's going to help them financially, make them more secure, may get them a new ground in the future. So they're going to want to stay in the National League and build on that, knowing that investment is there with that money, etc. So Alan Devonshire will always pull a rabbit out of the hat, and they'll probably stay up comfortably. And tomorrow, I think they'll win 1-0.
Next game then, Oldham versus newly promoted Braintree. There's been a lot of talk about Oldham. I'll admit a lot of it sounds down from myself when I've spoke about them. My predictions quite low. I've spoke about them in quite a negative way. They're playing as a Braintree side that I'm quite optimistic about this season, getting promoted. And like we've said, they've clearly recruited very well. On paper, it looks very well with signing very established players in this division who've proven themselves. And for me, this game, and this isn't me having anything against Oldham, because I'll be honest, I don't. But I just think for this game with Braintree just getting promoted, sides are going to up the game against Oldham. And for them to go into Boundary Park, it's a massive occasion for Braintree. And I could see them causing a bit of a shock here. And I'm actually going to go for a 1-0 Braintree win. How do you see it going, Paul?
I completely agree. Actually, I was just thinking about, formulating in my head, Oldham, Braintree, what could you expect? And I think you've hit the nail on the head in as much as Oldham's one of the big fish in this league, and there's no two ways about that. Boundary Park's one of the big grounds to go to, 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 people in it. Clubs are going to play harder against the likes of Oldham and Barnet and Forest Green than maybe they will against the likes of Eastleigh and Maidenhead and Wealdstone. And that again, no disrespect to those smaller sides. So Oldham they've got it tough this season because that's what will happen. Braintree, the good thing about Braintree is the recruitment they've made is those lads are not going to be overawed about going to Boundary Park, and they'll see it as a good occasion to try and go and get a win and get your first 3 points on the board nationally. But they're not going to go there wide-eyed, open-mouthed and gone, wow, I'm playing at Boundary Park. These lads have been there before. So they're going to go there and want to do a job. And they're not going to be overawed by that particular occasion, if you like. Brilliant for the fans. And I think, because of that, because Braintree's recruitment's been good, can they gel like we discussed? Then I think they're going to give Oldham a bit of a problem tomorrow. I think Oldham will hold their own. I've gone with a 2-2 draw, and I think from Oldham's fans' perspective, they've really got to make sure they stick with their team and make Boundary Park the difficult place to go for these teams.
I just think it's a massive banana skin for Oldham. Like you mentioned, the players have clearly been there before. and there's very little pressure on Braintree. They'll see this as a free hit, I think, going to somewhere like Oldham. Oldham, they're a side being at home. There's going to be a bumper crowd there because it's the opening day. And I think Braintree fans will be there going with the opinion of, let's just enjoy the occasion. Let's enjoy going to somewhere like Boundary Park. And maybe the players will as well, which means the pressure won't be on them. But I really could see an upset here, and I'm actually going to go for a 1-0 Braintree win. Next game then, Southend v York. I think game of the game week. This game is actually going to be on Dan's, I think it is, the new place that's going to be covering the National League this season, broadcasting the National League. I think it's a good game to pick, to be honest, to introduce Dan's into the National League. I think it's that. I'm not too sure, to be honest. But no, for this game, for me, I'm going to go... It's a hard one to predict, I think. I think I'll go for a 1-1 draw. Maybe a bit of a cop-out, but yeah, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. How do you see it going, Paul?
This one's going to be a blockbuster on the telly. I've gone Southend 3, York 2. Southend fans are going to be up for it. They got a new owner. They got their club back. York are going to be up for it. It's 500-600 in that small little away stand behind the goal, making a lot of noise. York have look really good going forward if a little bit of unproven with the players they've recruited, but they've got goals in them potentially. Yeah, Southend are pretty good defensively. I could just see this being a really good open game of football, a really good advert for the National League. The sun will be shining, the pitch will be brilliant. They'll be fresh, and I think hopefully it's a good game for the telly. But yeah, Southend 3, York 2, but it could easily go the other way. That score could easily go the other way. But Southend at home, I think they've just got the advantage.
Next game, then we've got newly promoted Tamworth against relegated Sutton. This is going to be one of the more attractive games as well for the neutral, I feel. Tamworth getting promoted, I think, we both put them 24th. But it's fair to say it got quite a lot of criticism on the Tamworth forum and in the comments. Opening day, though, Tamworth were very good defensively last season. Sutton have had a massive turnover with the amount of players that have been brought in. I think this will be a 0-0 draw for me. How do you see it going, Paul?
I've gone with a 2-0 Sutton win. Purely, Boston and Tamworth getting home ties at the first week of the season in the National League is really good for them. I have predicted both of them to lose. But, I just think Sutton are a very young side. Steve Morrison's overhauled their squad. He's got rid of a lot of the players that have got them relegated. So there's no negativity around the place. They're going to be sort of thinking, right, let's go for this. Let's try and get promoted at the first time of asking through the playoffs or, automatically. Tamworth, a really good game for them to open up with. They'll probably have a bit of a crowd there. The atmosphere will be good. Probably not the greatest place to go if you're a full-time National League EFL player, etc. So they'll make it difficult up there at Tamworth. And but I just can see Sutton being too strong for them. And I'm going with a 2-0 win for Sutton.
Yeah, a lot of people have seemed to be backing Sutton in the comments there. Me and David have agreed on something finally. A 0-0 draw, we've both agreed on there. Next game then that we will have a look at is the final one, actually, and it's Yeovil Town versus Hartlepool. Yeovil coming up. They're probably the club out of them all. Probably the one where you've got the highest expectations for, you might say, due to the history of the club, the size of the club as well. They took the National League South by storm. I think this will be... I'm going to go... I think Hartlepool will do well over the course of the season, but with it being the opening day for Yeovil, there'll be a bumper crowd at Huish Park. I'm actually going to go for 2-1 Yeovil win. I'm going to go for. How do you see it going, Paul?
I've gone for exactly the same, Luke. I think, we spoke to Mark Cooper last week and he's very positive about his squad. They've had a good pre-season and I know he's brought one player in this week from Bristol City. He's looking to add another. There was rumours one of the goalies gone out on loan today to Western-super-Mare. I saw on Twitter. So, yeah, he's got the squad he wants. He's been backed by being given a 3-year contract. There's a bit of stability on and off the pitch there at Huish Park. They'll probably have 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 regularly there this season. that's a long way for Hartlepool to come first game of the season as well, isn't it? And Hartlepool are in that, again, just a bit of transition. You know, third manager of the season last year. Although, you know, when you look at it, the manager they've got is very, very good at this level. He knows the level. They've made a good signing in the lad from Crawley, who's Nate Campbell, you know, centre forward, who's gone back home to live up back in the northeast. So, yeah, I think Pauls will have an all right season if they can stay a little bit stable, keep their injuries free. You know, Darren Searle's a good manager, but I think Mark Cooper's Yeovil will come back in this league. They want to give a bit of an impression, and because of that, they'll win 2-1.
I think that wraps up the predictions then for the opening game week. Thank you to everyone that has tuned in tonight. These were last season's end results for those who are interested. We'll put these on screen now. 186 points to 177 in the end. 9 points separated us. I think you actually beat me on the final game week, Paul. Also, please check out our sponsors, cards accepted. There will be a link in the description for you to check those out. And also, if you could please, can you please consider liking and subscribing to the channel, especially if you're new. I know there'll be a lot of new people tuning in tonight, if that is live or afterwards. If you're watching afterwards, let us know your predictions in the comments below. Also, give us your opinions on the podcast and on our opinions as well. And yeah, I think that almost wraps it up. Thank you to everyone that's tuned in tonight. Paul, once again, thanks for joining me. I'm looking forward to covering the National League for another season with yourself.
Yeah, and you, Luke. It's going to be fun. I think the only thing that we know that is going to be correct is a lot of our predictions and our final table predictions are going to be incorrect, but it's all the fun of doing it. And let's just see how they see. But, you know, I wish all the very best, all the teams, all the supporters travelling up and down the country. Stay safe. Enjoy watching your team play. You know, back them as much as you can. And when you get the opportunity, come on here and discuss your team and your individual players. And we'll see where it takes us. But another 10 months of a roller coaster ride in or what they call it, the Vanna drama, don't they? So here's to another good season. And we'll see you next week, Luke, when hopefully I'm on top of that tree after week 1.
Yeah, hopefully not from my perspective. But no, thank you to everyone that's tuned in tonight. And we will see you, I think, next Thursday. Bye for now.